Mid-Tier Thoughts. Welcome back, everybody, to another Mid-Tier Thoughts video. Sorry about the audio. We're hopefully we're gonna fix this, but if you can't tell, I'm in the beautiful woods of North Idaho, and it's windy as hell. But that's what happens whenever you decide to film out in nature on top of a mountain on a random Wednesday. So let's get going. What are we talking about today? Today we're talking about a concept I've seen a few places over YouTube that I just kind of want to give my 2 cents to. It's the idea of the Scout Carbine, right? So we're probably all familiar as gun guys with the idea of the Scout rifle. Most of the ideas of that come back from Jeff Cooper. Kind of the idea of a bolt action, lightweight rifle with a forward mounted optic. Generally like a 1:6, something like that, some kind of magnified glass, still retains iron sights, the idea of kind of like a brush gun, right? Well, it's not the 80s anymore, and it was kind of an outdated concept when it came out. Nowadays, most of us are rocking ARs. So the Scout Carbine is a lightweight AR, in my opinion, right? Or some type of lightweight rifle like this that has some of those features of the Scout rifle translated over to it. The Modern Minuteman has a good video on this, as well as his book that he published recently. So they kind of go into detail about this. So I'm gonna kind of give my rendition of the Scout Carbine, what I like about it, and kind of how it's set up. So this rifle is a Colt SP1. This is a very lightweight Colt rifle, basically kind of set after the early XM177 style variants. It does have a rifle length barrel on here. I do have this set up for my Yankee Hill machining can, so this is not the appropriate muzzle device you would normally find on these. I have my light mount up here. This is a Surefire G2X Lite, a Brownells Retro 4 power for my optic, and other than that, it's just a nice lightweight handy rifle. So the idea of the Scout Carbine, right? We're talking about a very light rifle, under 7 pounds, or as light as you could possibly get, including all of your accessories on here, as well as the capability to have quick follow-up shots, so being semi-auto, having the magazine capacity to be able to put those rounds down range and get you out of a jam if you need it, as well as some type of optic that would allow you to have positive identification on your target at a set distance, so preferably past 300 yards, right? So the idea of the Scout Carbine is not necessarily something that you're intending to get into firefights with constantly all the time, but kind of some more along the lines of recce rifle, right? Now, recce is a term that gets overlooked a lot of times, or overplayed rather, but it really just comes down to meaning like reconnaissance, right? The idea of recon is not that you're engaging in firefights constantly. The idea of recon is to reconnaissance an area, to get information and get eyes on an area, learn what you need to learn about it, find out what you need to find out, and get out of there. Ideally, a really good recon, if you're good at it, you shouldn't even be noticed, right? The enemy should never know you're there. So the reason that we have the rifle, though, is in case something happens, because all plans go astray, we have a way to get out of that conflict, right? We have a way to get out of that scenario, should it go south. Now, again, if you're doing a recon, odds are you're probably spending a lot of time on foot. So why would we want something like this over like the Daniel Defense I've had on the channel before that's got all the bells and whistles, that I've got, you know, my 1:6 with the red dot on top, suppressor, everything else on there. The only thing I don't have on here that you probably would is the suppressor, just to keep things quiet. But why would you choose something like this over, you know, a more like a GPR or a DMR, or something more suited or more pimped out, right? Well, the old adage is that ounces equal pounds, pounds equal pain, right? If you're doing reconnaissance, odds are you're probably not doing it vehicle-based. You're probably out on foot. And on foot, you're gonna be walking a lot. You're gonna be carrying other items with you, and other things of sustainment, and food, water, ammo, your pack, all this other stuff that you're bringing with you to go do this reconnaissance, right? So if you have this rifle that's got all this extra crap on it, it might weigh you down over time. Might be stuff that you don't necessarily need for that. Might be good for a more direct action kit or something like this, whereas just a really lightweight rifle with just the bare minimums on it to get you through a scenario might help you out in that scenario, and might be more beneficial to what you're doing, and be a much lighter but still capable rifle. All right, guys, big thanks out to 1791 Gun Leather. They sent me out some awesome holsters. Trying these out lately. I'm not a big leather guy, but lately these guys are kind of winning me over. I'm really digging this as a holster for my 19. This is from 1791 Gun Leather. Really nice construction on the leather. Nice little clip there to hold onto your belt. They make these for inside the waistband, outside the waistbands for some of your larger pistols and you FUDs out there. And one of the things I'm really digging right now is their snag mag. So the snag mag is kind of a Kydex magazine holster. Fits nice and easy in your pocket. Super concealable. And away you go. Super nice and easy. There's a link in the description. Check down below to get your awesome stuff from 1791 and see what kind of holsters they got for you. They also got custom holsters for if you got a light bearing or red dot gun as well. If you want to carry in comfort, that's the way to do it. 1791 gun leather. Check them out. So as far as we're talking about like the stuff you're going to have with you, kind of have it laid over the stump here. I've got my Minuteman readiness kit that I've done the previous video on. This is the chest rig here with the 6 cells for the magazines, water, med kit, more water in the back, and then I've got my 3-day assault pack back here sitting on top of it, which we'll do another video on in a different day of kind of what's in the pack for this. So the idea here, again, is that we're going out on a longer term patrol, we're going out on a recon, we're doing something to where, you know, we're not necessarily intending to engage with the enemy, but we want to make sure we have the capability to do so if need be, as well as keep things light. So this rifle, as it's set up, weighs in the ballpark of 7 to 7.5 pounds, relatively really lightweight compared to my Daniel, which is a much heavier rifle now that it's got all this other extra crap on it, right? So again, kind of what do we need for a Scout Carbine to be effective? Well, the first thing we need is the rifle itself. So you want to make sure you have, and I like having a rifle over the pistol just for the added velocity and potential reach of the weapon. If you're trying to stay quiet, preferably some way to mount a suppressor. Not a necessary tool for this, but ideally that would be part of it. Some way to mount a weapons light, so that way you can, or to mount a weapons light, or to mount any type of night vision accessories that you might have. Now, on an older rifle like this, it is not impossible. It is not impossible to do so. It's definitely something you can. It just takes a little bit more ingenuity because you don't have the M-LOK accessories to do with this. So for me, I'm not running night vision right now, so I have white light, right? So my white light is a Surefire G2X on a mount that comes off of the clamshell handguard off to the side. Mounts up any light that fits that diameter. I think it's a 1-inch light. So we're doing recon, right? So ideally you're gonna have some kind of reconnaissance tools with you, ideally binoculars, rangefinders, things like this, right? Bare minimum, I like to have some type of magnified glass. So this is a fixed 4-power optic on here. So the cool thing about the Brownells Retro is that the adjustments on here are really intuitive. You just click the dial over and you can go from 1 to 500 yards and it adjusts your reticle to make the shots that you need to make at those distances. So with this, you're able to see out several hundred yards. Obviously, anyone who's messed around with the 4-power before, you're aware of how well you can see far out. Across the way, I'm not sure how well the camera's gonna pick it up, is a distance of about 9 to 100 yards across the hillside where you can kind of see a stretch of road out that way. So from there, if I were to look out here, I could probably tell that there was a person there. I would not probably be able to identify who it was without using some type of glass, right? So I know that ideally as a civilian Minuteman setting and as we're training, we probably don't want to point rifles at people, but if it is a SHGF scenario, that is an entirely different ballgame. So with this, if I'm to look out there with my 4-power, I have a much better view of what's going on out there, and I could probably tell at least what they're wearing as far as uniform, clothing, if they have a weapon or not. So you're able to get that kind of positive identification. Now, another thing too that the Scout rifle has that I like to translate over to the Scout Carbine, some kind of backup optic system with that. So that could be a top-mounted red dot, or in this case, it's carry handle mounted. So I have my iron sights, which my front and rear are still visible and still accessible. There's a little hole through the rail on here of my optic to where I can get down on the irons and see through if I need to. So if for some reason I need to ignore the 4-power and drop down to my irons, I can, and I can engage targets with those ideally. With that, the rifle, like I said, pretty simple, pretty easy to use, pretty lightweight, not a whole lot on here, not a whole lot to talk about. That's kind of the whole point, right? It's a nice lightweight carbine that you can use to keep the pounds down and still lay down a good amount of fire if need be. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, If you've got different ideas for a Scout rifle or different platforms of, again, a lightweight rifle kind of around that 7 to 7.5 pounds mark, not a whole lot on it, or maybe you're lucky enough to get a whole lot of stuff on there and keep the weight down somehow. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. I'd love to see that stuff in the comments, or hit me up on Instagram. Kind of show me what your guys' ideas of this are, and kind of what your version of a Scout carbine should look like. If I missed anything, let me know. Or if there's any ideas that you guys have to make this a better rifle, go ahead and put that in the comments. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great one.
Got the wrong gun.